The reason why it's so important that we gathered here today is to recognize the 215 children that were found in Kamloops, and to offer ceremony and to really comprehend this issue of the missing children that were found. Within ceremony, it's a part of the healing process that we need to acknowledge these children that were found, and I think it's really important also for steps forward to understand what we need to do now beyond the finding of these children, is really to enact reconciliation and to enact some semblance of justice for these children.
Canada needs to be held accountable by the world. Canada needs to be held accountable because their intention was to annihilate a people and to take all of the resources that those people had for themselves. And to me, that's the same as taking a gun and shooting somebody and taking their belongings.
It is hard for any of us to comprehend the huge number of children that are lost. For myself, I needed to put this number into perspective that I could actually comprehend and understand. At our high school today, we have 270 students. 70% of those students are First Nations. So I thought what it would look like if all of a sudden 215 of those kids were not there. We would have empty classrooms. We would have lockers with no names on them, empty hallways, and I guarantee you that I would have many, many phone calls and families coming saying, "Where are my children?"
As First Nations, as Dakat people, one of the first documented accounts of the Dakat people was how we treated our children, and that we kept our children's spirits as innocent as possible for as long as possible. We did not talk about adult things in their presence. We were really mindful of the fact that we had to keep them innocent. We didn't hit our children, and we didn't yell at our children. And one of the observations that Father Maurice made was that if you were in a room with a bunch of children and like adults and children, and you were observing them, you could never tell which child belonged to which parent, because the children were so loved by everybody that all children were treated equally the same by every person that they encountered.
It was important because there's a lot of grief in the community, and people don't know what to do with the grief because there's no wake, there's no funeral, there's no names. There's just a general sense of grief.
I can still dance. We had to learn that in secret. My regalia has to be built in secret. I learned to hunt in secret or go to jail. The biggest message that I've heard in the last 3 days is reconciliation. I'm Tamasio. We're warriors. There's no reconciliation until there's justice. And that's a fact.
So for the federal government to fully implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations and have a plan to do it, the federal government has to quit fighting us in court and follow up with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal in the court case between Child and Family Caring Society and the Assembly of First Nations. I mean, all this outpouring of gestures and solidarity has to translate into action.